Selamat sore kepada Bapak Ibu, Saudara-saudari sedama. Terimalah salam kasih dalam Dharma, Namo Sang Hyang Adi Budaya, Namo Buddhaya. Sungguh berbahagia pada sore hari ini saya Cynthia yang akan menemani para hadirin pada Dhamma Talk yang akan dibawakan oleh Bante Srawasti Damika dengan judul Jejak Langkah di Hamparan Debu. Sebuah karma baik bagi kita semua pada sore hari ini karena berkesempatan untuk mendengarkan Dhamma yang akan dibawakan oleh Bante Damika yang dimana beliau sedang melakukan perjalanan berkeliling Indonesia untuk membabarkan ajaran Buddha Dharma. Sebelum itu, tanpa mengurangi rasa hormat, saya menghimbau kepada para hadirin untuk men-silent dan atau mode senyapkan HP-nya agar tidak mengganggu pada acara berlangsung. Dan juga diingatkan untuk tidak makan di area Dhammasala ini selama acara berlangsung. Saya juga ingin menginfokan kepada Bapak Ibu sekalian bahwa di bagian belakang Bhakti Sala ini ada meja yang menjual buku-buku tentang ajaran Buddha Dharma yang dimana para hadirin sekalian bisa membelinya dan pembayaran hanya bisa dilakukan dengan cash ataupun dengan QRIS.
Oke, Bapak Ibu, sambil menunggu bantainya naik ke lantai 3, saya sampaikan sedikit, ya, beliau ini adalah biku senior, ya, usianya sudah 70 lebih, ya, kalau sekaliber untuk pembicaranya, ya, sekaliber Ajahn Brahm, tapi mungkin di Indonesia belum terlalu dikenal atau populer karena memang beliau jarang ke Indonesia. 30 tahun yang lalu pernah datang. Ya, dan buku-bukunya saya memang belum sempat baca sih, tapi yang pernah baca mereka ngomong itu sangat bagus. Dan yang bagus lagi kemarin di Wihara Budayana Surabaya di Putat sana, ya, acaranya cukup bagus, ya, cukup menarik karena beliau ini simpel sekali, memberikan itu secara kita katakan mudah dicerna. Ya, walaupun beliau seorang biku senior, beliau tidak mau terlalu diwahkan, ya. Beliau dari Sri Lanka tapi tinggalnya di Australia. Karena beliau sudah di lantai 3, waktunya kita tidak buang banyak, ya. Moming di mana, Son? Oke.
Tanpa berlama-lama lagi, karena Bante sudah ada di belakang, mari para hadirin untuk bangkit berdiri beranjali. Mari kita sambut Bante Srawasti Damika. Dan juga penerjemah kita Dr. Hendra Lim, MPD. Waktu dan tempat saya silakan.
Tes. Bante, maybe you can to have the microphone. Yes. Selamat malam. Namo Sanghyang Adi Budaya, Nama Budaya. Good evening. Good evening, Bante. Welcome to Budayana Dhammawira Center. So this would be our second evening in Surabaya, and we would like to request Bante to teach us, to share to us some of the Buddha Dhamma, and hopefully it can benefit us and all beings. Please, Bante. Ya, jadi saya memohon beliau untuk memberikan pengajaran Dharma kepada kita untuk bisa memberikan manfaat kepada kita dan banyak makhluk. Testing. Please, Bante. Yeah, we are ready to start.
First of all, thank you for inviting me here, and thank you for attending this evening.
Terima kasih atas undangan kepada saya dan terima kasih atas kehadiran Anda semua malam ini.
I've been asked to say something about a book that I wrote last year on the life of the Buddha.
Dan saya diundang untuk membahas sesuatu terkait dengan buku yang diterbitkan tahun lalu yang berhubungan dengan kehidupan Buddha.
So I will share with you some of the things that I learnt as a result of writing that book.
Dan saya akan berbagi beberapa hal yang telah saya pelajari sebagai hasil dari menulis buku tersebut.
So I became a Buddhist when I was about 18 or 19, and from that time onwards, I've always been interested in the Dhamma, but I've also been interested in the Buddha himself, that is, the person who discovered the Dhamma and taught it to others. I've always been interested in who he was and what he was like.
Saya menjadi Buddhis di usia 18-19 tahun dan saya sejak itu tertarik kepada Dharma, tapi saya juga tertarik kepada Buddha. Ya, siapa dia? Siapa sesungguhnya Buddha? Ia yang telah mengajarkan Dharma kepada kita.
And I've generally been fairly busy as a monk. I've going to funerals and going to dhanas and visiting people in the hospital and giving talks. So most of my monk's life I've been actually quite busy, but in 2017 I decided not to do that anymore, so that I could spend more time meditating and also writing.
Sebagai seorang biksu saya sibuk banyak melakukan pelayanan, mengunjungi rumah sakit, mengajarkan Dharma. Sejak 2017 saya memutuskan untuk tidak melakukan itu semua dan lebih fokus ke dalam untuk bermeditasi dan menulis.
So I decided now would be a good opportunity to learn everything I could about who the Buddha was and what he was like. And so I decided to get the Tripitaka, they know what that is, yeah? And start at the beginning and read all the way through. Now, in an English translation, that's nearly 50 volumes. But I started at the beginning, and every time I read something about the Buddha, I just wrote it down, and I collected all of the information that I could find in the Tripitaka about the Buddha.
Ya. Jadi saya tertarik untuk mendalami siapa Buddha, siapa dia sesungguhnya ya. Dan saya membaca Tripitaka, kan itu banyak ya, volumenya banyak, ada banyak sekali, ada sekitar 50 volume, jilid. Lalu saya baca, setiap kali saya menemukan catatan yang berhubungan dengan kehidupan Buddha, untuk mengetahui dia siapa, saya catat. Ya, saya catat, buat catatan maksudnya.
Now, I could have read the Mahayana Sutras. I could have read the books on Tibetan Buddhism, but I decided only to read the Pali Tripitaka because that is the earliest record we have of the Buddha. So that's not to say that those other books in Sanskrit and Tibetan and in Chinese, that's not to say that they're wrong or anything like that, but they date from quite a long time after the Buddha, whereas the Pali Suttas, most of them date from about the time of the Buddha. So they are closer to the person of the Buddha himself, and therefore they are probably more authentic.
Jadi sumbernya lebih ke Pali teks. Tripitaka berbasis Pali, bukan yang Mahayana atau Sanskerta atau Tibet. Bukan berarti teks-teks tersebut salah, keliru. Tetapi catatan dalam Tripitaka Pali itu lebih dekat ke sumber awalnya. Jadi artinya orang yang Tripitaka Pali itu sumber aslinya itu lebih dekat. Waktunya lebih dekat dibandingkan dengan teks-teks yang lain. Jadi sekali lagi bukan berarti teks yang tidak digunakan salah ya. Itu yang penting.
And as I read, I started to realize in actual fact there are two Buddhas.
Dan ketika saya membaca, saya sadari ada dua jenis atau dua kelompok orang Buddha.
There is the Buddha of popular literature. There is the Buddha of tradition. There is the Buddha that most people know. Then there is the Buddha as he is described in the earliest records that we have. And in actual fact, there's a big difference between the two.
Jadi dalam prosesnya saya menemukan ada dua jenis Buddha. Buddha yang populer, yang orang-orang kebanyakan tahu, dan Buddha yang ada di dalam catatan Tripitaka atau catatan-catatan awal. Dan dua jenis Buddha ini berbeda.
The Buddha of popular imagination, the Buddha of the tradition, he's a sort of like Superman, but he doesn't have a cape and a special shirt.
Ya, Buddha yang populer, yang kebanyakan orang tahu itu kayak Superman, ya, tapi nggak punya jubah and doesn't wear this.
He doesn't
outside.
have the cape, yeah.
And the underwear outside.
And the special underwear, yeah.
Ya, kalau Superman kan kolornya di depan kan. Kira gitulah ya.
So for example, when he wants to go to the 7-Eleven, he doesn't walk there, he flies there.
Ya, kalau mau ke 7-Eleven, Buddha nggak jalan, dia terbang.
He sits on a lotus, not on a chair.
Duduknya di lotus, bukan di bangku.
He doesn't have to turn on the light, there is a light coming out of his head.
Nggak perlu nyalain lampu karena di kepalanya sudah ada cahaya.
That's the Buddha of legend, of tradition, of popular understanding.
Itulah Buddha menurut legenda, ya secara tradisi dan pendapat secara populer.
And I discovered that that's not the Buddha as he's described in the earliest records in the Pali Tipitaka.
Tapi itu bukan Buddha sebagaimana yang telah digambarkan di dalam catatan paling awal dalam agama Buddha.
So when you put all that information from the Pali Tipitaka together, you get quite an interesting and full picture of what one person was like.
Dan ketika kita mengumpulkan semua informasi dari Tripitaka, ya sangat menarik bagaimana kita bisa melihat seseorang ini atau beliau ini sesungguhnya seperti apa.
And what you discover was, in some ways, the Buddha was perfectly normal, just like you, just like me, even just like him.
Ya, dan dari situ kita lihat bahwa Buddha sesungguhnya ya normal seperti orang biasa, seperti Anda, seperti saya, dan khususnya seperti saya.
First of all, the Buddha was a human being.
Pertama-tama Buddha adalah manusia.
Psychologically, emotionally, and in the depth of his understanding, he was completely different from us. But physical, in his habits, how he ate, he was a fairly normal human being.
Secara fisik Buddha itu sama seperti kita normal, tetapi secara filosofis, secara psikologi tentu beliau sangat mendalam.
So everybody knows that his mother, Mahamaya, she was sleeping one day and she had a dream about, what did she have a dream about?
Ya,
Huh? A white elephant, yeah.
semua kita tahu ya bahwa ibu beliau Ratu Mahamaya itu pernah memimpikan gajah ya. Warnanya apa anak-anak? Putih, white.
That story is not in the Tipitaka.
Kisah itu nggak ada di Tripitaka. And he said, oh, the lady, oh.
Yeah. And we also know that his mother was standing holding onto a tree when out of her side the baby Buddha came.
Kita juga belajar ya anak-anak di sekolah ya, melahirkannya secara berdiri, kemudian pup, pegangan terus ya, bayinya pun lahir.
Was it boop? Was it?
Pup,
Oh, so, okay.
pup bunyinya. Bup, pup, bup, pup.
So I thought, why would she be standing? So I did some research and I found out that in many cultures, women stand when they give birth. Huh? I didn't know that. And I found out that in the West, nowadays women always lay down when they give birth. But only 200 years ago, they would sit like on a chair, and the chair had a hole in it, and the baby would come out that way, and sometimes they would stand. I didn't know that. So I found the baby coming out of her side, that's actually not mentioned in the Tipitaka. And it doesn't mention she was holding on to a tree. But it is quite possible that she was actually standing when she gave birth. So here we have half the story seems to be possible, and the other half is probably mythological.
Oke, ini cukup panjang ya. Jadi karena ada rasa penasaran, beliau melakukan riset. Dan memang ternyata cara melahirkan di setiap budaya itu berbeda. Ada yang berdiri, ada yang berbaring, kemudian ternyata ada yang duduk. Gitu, ya. Dan diceritakan bahwa Ratu Mahaya itu kan berpegangan di sebatang pohon. Dan dari cerita ini ternyata ada setengah yang bisa dikatakan benar berdirinya, dan setengah yang masih menjadi sebuah mitos. Karena kan kita lihat digambarkan lahirnya kan dari samping. Itu yang kemudian ada setengah benar dan setengah kemudian yang boleh dikatakan sebagai mitos.
Everybody knows what the Buddha's name was.
Semua orang tahu kan? We can.
What was the Buddha's name?
Siapa nama Buddha? Ayo.
Yeah.
100% correct.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, except that the name Siddhartha is not found anywhere in the Tipitaka.
Semuanya benar, sayangnya.
Not once.
Tidak, nama itu tidak ditemukan dimanapun di Tripitaka.
You didn't know that, did you? I didn't know it either. I've always been told his name was Siddhartha. Well, that name, you can put that in a search engine. You won't find it in the Tipitaka. However, it many times mentions that his family name was Gautama.
Dan kalau Anda masukin entry di Siddhartha, di Tripitaka, Anda nggak akan ketemu. Tetapi memang disebutkan bahwa nama keluarganya adalah Gautama.
So again, we have part of the story is based on fact, and the other part is a later idea.
Ya, jadi
Does anybody know what Gautama means? Does anybody know what that name means?
Jadi sekali lagi ya, ada setengah yang tepat, setengah lagi yang masih kita harus pertanyakan kebenarannya. Ada yang tahu arti Gautama? Anybody? Ada yang tahu? I don't think so.
Go means a cow.
Go itu sapi.
Tama means best. So it means the best cow.
Oh, tama, utama ya. Tama artinya yang terbaik. Jadi sapi yang terbaik.
Today that would be a strange name. Why, can anybody tell me why you would call your son best cow? Not bad. That's pretty good, but we know that at that time they didn't worship cows. But that's a very good answer. It seems to show that this was a culture where cows or cattle were very important. So like in East Africa, the Maasai people, they don't worship cows, but if you want to buy a really good wife, you've got to have at least 10 cows. In other words, they are economically very important. It indicates a culture where cattle raising was quite important.
Ya, kalau ada orang sekarang dikasih nama, namanya adalah sapi yang bagus, itu kan aneh. Tetapi dulu kan enggak. Kenapa ini bisa? Karena dijawab sama kawan kita, karena ada pemujaan kepada sapi. Hampir benar, tetapi sesungguhnya ini menunjukkan bahwa sapi atau hewan ternak pada masa itu memiliki peran yang penting. Ada satu suku di Afrika, kalau Anda mau kawin, maka Anda menukarnya dengan hewan ternak. Gitu ya.
So, I won't be surprised if I hear that some children in the modern world are called best pussycat, or maybe best canary, or maybe best goldfish.
Jadi nggak heran nanti kalau di masa modern itu ada anak yang disebut namanya itu ikan emas yang baik ya, ikan emas terbaik, atau misalnya kucing yang terbaik.
And everybody knows what the Buddha's father was. His name was Suddhodana, but what was he?
Oke. Jadi kita tahu ya nama ayahnya Suddhodana, tapi sebenarnya siapa sih dia?
I mean, was he a mechanic or was he a carpenter?
Mekanik, tukang kayu. Silakan dijawab aja langsung ya.
What was the Buddha's father?
King,
Yeah, correct.
emperor itu.
Unfortunately, that's not in the Tipitaka.
Sayangnya itu tidak tercatat di Tripitaka.
Interesting, huh?
Menarik ya.
So, it mentions that the Buddha's father was a Raja. But at that time, the word Raja did not really mean a king. It meant a chief. He could be elected, and maybe 10 years later, he could be replaced by another Raja. So later on, 300-400 years after the Buddha, the name or the word Raja came to mean a king. But at the time of the Buddha, it simply meant a leader, a chief, probably elected by the town elders. And if they approved of his rule, they would keep him. And if they didn't like what he was doing, they would kick him out and elect another Raja.
Ya, jadi kata raja kan sekarang kita terjemahkan sebagai raja ya. It happens that the words raja also in Indonesian.
Is it? And what does it mean?
King.
Yeah, right. In most countries it would
Ya.
mean a king.
Jadi tapi dulu di masa kehidupan Buddha, raja itu lebih pas sebagai pemimpin. Jadi sebenarnya Suddhodana itu adalah orang yang dipilih untuk memimpin. Dan ada masa tertentu, mungkin 10 tahun. Kalau dia memimpin dengan baik, bisa dipertahankan. Tetapi kalau memimpinnya kurang baik, maka biasa saja beliau itu digantikan. Dan ratusan tahun kemudian, kata raja ini yang awalnya bermakna pemimpin, lalu bergeser maknanya menjadi raja, seperti yang kita ketahui.
And everybody knows that like all young men, he got interested in girls and he ended up marrying a young woman. And what was her name?
Of the girl.
Yeah.
Nama ininya. Nama gadis muda yang dinikahi Siddhartha siapa?
You're correct. There's one problem with that.
It's not found in.
The name is not found anywhere in the Tipitaka. In fact, it doesn't mention his marriage. Isn't
Yeah.
it interesting?
Jadi sama seperti laki-laki pada umumnya ketika sudah waktunya, sudah beranjak dewasa kemudian menikah dengan seorang yang bernama Yasodhara. Dan ya tidak ditemukan juga di Tripitaka dan
Now,
ya gitulah ya.
now we know he was married because he had one son. His son is mentioned, but his wife and her name, because women are not important, you see.
Dan memang juga tidak disebutkan ya ada perkawinan, tetapi kita tahu bahwa ada anaknya satu gitu. Tapi nggak ada cerita perkawinannya.
And we all know that as he grew up, his father, Sudodana, was worried that he might get interested in religion. And instead of following in his father's footsteps, he might end up getting interested in religion and becoming a monk. So what did his father do? He built him 3 palaces, and they had video games, they had TV, they had discos, they had everything to keep him interested in sensual pleasures rather than thinking about the facts of life.
Ya, dan kita juga tahu bahwa ayahnya kan khawatir ya, anaknya nanti lebih tertarik kepada bidang agama dan menjadi pertapa. Lalu dibangunkan istana ya, ada wifi-nya, ada TV-nya ya. Yang intinya adalah menjauhkan anak ini dari memikirkan ke hal-hal keagamaan dan membuat dia lebih terseret di dalam kesenangan-kesenangan indera dengan panca indera.
But one day he went into Kapilavastu with his friend in a chariot and he saw 4 things. What was the first thing he saw?
Ya, dan beliau pun kemudian pergi ke kota Kapilavastu dan bersama kawannya dan melihat 4 peristiwa. Ayo, peristiwa pertama apa?
What was the first thing he saw?
Sick man.
If you don't know, it doesn't matter.
Nggak tahu juga nggak apa-apa.
But I'll get very angry.
Nggak bakal dimarahin kok ya.
What was the first thing he saw?
Not sure, yuk nggak yakin. Old man. Bante.
An old man?
An old man.
What was the second thing he saw?
Yang kedua, sick man. Sick.
What was the next thing he saw?
Death man.
He saw a dead man, and the last thing he saw was a monk. Correct. It's a great story. Unfortunately, it's not in the Tipitaka.
Cerita yang menarik, sayangnya. Udah tahu kan sayangnya apa? Nggak ada di Tripitaka awal.
So you can see, many of the things we knew, they may be true. I'm not saying that they're not true. What I'm saying is, they are not found in the earliest records that we have.
Ya. Jadi gini ya, jangan salah paham. Saya tidak mengatakan kalau itu nggak benar. Saya menyatakan bahwa itu tidak ditemukan di catatan yang paling awal.
However, there is one sutra where the Buddha is talking about what happened to him when he was young. And in that sutra he says, I thought about old age. I thought about sickness. I thought about death. And I thought about what is the way to be free of that. So it looks to me like at some time later, somebody has read that and they have turned old age into an old man, sickness into a sick man, death into a dead body, and the way to Nibbana into a monk. In other words, they have taken something that the Buddha was thinking about, contemplating about, and humanized it, turned it into human beings.
Jadi ada satu sutta di mana Buddha mengatakan bahwa dia memikirkan tentang orang tua, ya. Old age itu usia tua, maaf, tentang orang tua, ya. Menjadi tua maksudnya, kemudian orang sakit dan cara untuk keluar mengatasi dari masalah ini. Lalu belakangan kemudian ada orang yang membaca sutta ini, kemudian mengubahnya, ya, dari usia tua menjadi orang tua, dari adanya penyakit menjadi orang sakit, ya. Terus dari orang tua orang sakit apa lagi? Ya, kematian menjadi orang mati. Lalu jalan untuk mengatasi itu semua menjadi pertapa.
So we know that after he thought about these things, he decided, I'm going to leave my wife and kid. Very irresponsible, very irresponsible. And he waited until everybody was asleep and he tiptoed out of the palace.
Ya, dan pengubahan ini kan menjadikan kisahnya lebih manusiawi. Dan selanjutnya kita tahu bahwa kemudian beliau pun meninggalkan, setelah merenungkan ini, meninggalkan anak dan istri, laki-laki yang tidak bertanggung jawab, ya, sambil ngumpet-ngumpet dan sambil nunggu suasana sudah gelap, sudah sepi.
Well, in one sutra, the Buddha talks about how he left his home. And he says, I left even though my parents were crying, even though they tried to stop me or make me change my mind. So apparently he didn't tiptoe out of the palace. He said to his father, okay, Dad, I'm leaving. And Dad said, what? Well, how are you going to get a job? What are you going to do? And his mother started going, wow. And the father said, it's your fault. You spoilt him when he was young. And now he wants to do this crazy thing. Apparently, that's not what happened. What happened was his parents knew. He must have told them. And they were very upset. So here we have, once again, what probably happened and what the legends and the stories tell us.
Oke, jadi ada satu sutta di mana Buddha di situ tercatat, ya, bahwa orang-orang itu menangis karena dia akan pergi atau berusaha untuk mencegahnya untuk pergi. Jadi bukan diam-diam berangkat. Jadi bisa dibayangkan ada satu skenario di mana Siddhartha ini minta izin sama bapaknya kaget gitu kan, terus nyalain emaknya, lu nih nggak bisa ngurus anak, nah, dan kayak di film-film gitulah, ya. Nah, dan kemudian kisah ini kita bisa lihat bahwa ada sesuatu yang terjadi dan kemudian ada yang bentuknya sebenarnya legenda.
Now, there are many other things that we know about the Buddha that are mentioned in the Tipitaka. I think one of the most interesting of this is that he spent several years practicing austerities, eating very little, not sleeping, being in complete isolation from others, living in the forest. That he mentions that. That is certainly in the Tipitaka. Then one day he decided, this isn't working. I'm going to try something else.
Ya, dan juga, ya, tentu ini ada di Tripitaka. Bagaimana kita mengetahui beliau berlatih dengan sangat serius sebagai pertapa, ya, makan sangat sedikit dan sebagainya, dan suatu hari memutuskan bahwa cara ini tidak akan berhasil, cara ini tidak akan membuahkan hasil.
So he started washing, he ate decent food, he built up his strength. Then one day, as he was walking, he came to quite a nice village, and he sat at the foot of a tree, and he said, that's it, I'm not going to move from here until I can make a breakthrough and attain enlightenment.
Ya, dan beliau pun kemudian berjalan, makan yang cukup, yang layak, dan tiba di sebuah tempat, duduk sebuah pohon, kemudian mengatakan, bertekad saya tidak akan bangkit sebelum saya mencapai sesuatu, mencapai penggugahan.
What happened then?
Kemudian apa yang terjadi? the sound of the guitar things, the music.
What happened then?
Lalu apa yang terjadi setelah itu?
Yeah, yellow shirt.
Ya,
What happened then?
apa yang kemudian terjadi? Salah nggak masalah.
I like Chinese people.
Can they say, I don't know, Bante.
If you were walking through the desert, the Sahara Desert, and you haven't seen another person for 3 weeks, and then you looked and you saw somebody coming, and it was a Chinese person, and when they got to you, you said, "Oh, hello, what's your name?" And he'd say, "Who, me?" Yes, you. If you don't know, just say so. Doesn't matter. It's not an exam. What happened to him as he sat under that tree?
Apa yang terjadi kepada Buddha setelah duduk? Are you pointing the guy with the
No.
blue or the green?
What's that?
I cannot see who are you pointing, Bante.
There's a guy with a blue T-shirt, and then there's a guy with a yellow T-shirt.
Dua-duanya.
Guy with a yellow T-shirt. Okay, he doesn't know. Do you know?
Ya.
Hmm?
Ya.
Before that happened, somebody attacked him.
Attack. Oh, the marah. Ya, sebelum apa? Beliau jawab kalau setelah duduk nanti mencapai penggugahan. Bante tanya, sebelum itu. Lalu ramai-ramai jawabnya apa? The God of Mara.
Right. How come the ladies know and these guys don't? Why is that? So Mara attacked him.
Diserang Mara ya.
So I have seen pictures of this. The Buddha is sitting there peaceful, and all around him is like an army of ugly, threatening beings attacking him.
Ya, saya pernah lihat gambar di mana Siddhartha duduk dengan anggun, tenang, dan kemudian ada banyak wajah-wajah seram yang menyerang beliau.
Trying to stop him from attaining enlightenment.
Berusaha mencegahnya mencapai penggugahan.
What do you reckon? Is that story in the sutras or not?
Ayo, ada nggak cerita ini di sutta?
What do you reckon?
Not sure. Nggak yakin ya?
Yes or no?
Now they begin to doubt, Bante.
Yes or no? Is
Ya
that-
apa enggak? Yes or no?
It is.
Ada di Tripitaka.
It's not.
It's not, haven't read.
Wrong. It is in the sutras.
Ada di dalam sutta. Now, is it true?
Yes. It's
yeah,
there.
really?
Yeah. Lots of monsters in the world. This is the interesting thing. So in the sutra, it says Mara attacked him with his army.
Di sutta ya ditulis tercatat bahwa Mara menyerang beliau dengan pasukannya.
And then it names the army, the regiments in that army. And they are called greed, anger, arrogance, pride, nastiness, gossiping, etc. The regiments in that army are given all these names.
Ya, dan nama-nama pasukannya itu keserakahan, kesombongan, ya, suka ngomongin orang lain, suka gosip, ngomongin yang enggak, dan berbagai jenis-jenis nama yang lain.
Have you ever known a regiment in the army? It's called arrogance or hatred. That sounds like a funny name for a police force. So this makes me think that story about Mara is not meant to be taken literally. What was attacking the Buddha was not a real army of monsters, but rather all the mental defilements. So here we've got, literally that story is not true. But poetically or metaphorically, yeah, it's probably true.
Jadi ada nggak sih pasukan itu dikasih nama pasukan sombong, ya, polisi, tentara kan enggak. Ya. Tetapi kisah ini kita bisa lihat secara literal itu artinya yang tertulis ya, atau secara metafora atau secara perumpamaan. Secara literal atau secara apa yang tertulis itu kita bisa pertanyakan kebenarannya. Tetapi kalau kita bayangkan ini secara metafora, maka ini bisa kita terima kebenarannya.
And in actual fact, if you know where to look, you can read some sutras, and they tell you something that is not literally true, but it is symbolically or metaphorically true.
Ya, kalau Anda bisa menggali ya suta-suta, Anda akan menemukan ada yang secara tertulis itu tidak tepat, tidak pas, tetapi secara perumpamaan, secara metafora itu benar.
So let's go back when the Buddha was born. So according to the story, he came out of his mother's side, and what did he do then?
Jadi secara legenda kan
What did he do then? After he came out of his mother's side, what did he do? And what happened? Can anybody tell me?
Oke, jadi setelah dilahirkan dari samping, kemudian apa yang terjadi?
What?
Walk 7 steps.
He walked 7 steps. Wasn't 6. It was 7, was it? Okay. And what happened with each step he took? What came out?
Lot,
A lotus flower, yeah.
ya, ini ceritanya udah tahu ya, jalan 7 langkah, kemudian bunga teratai ya, bukan bunga bang ya.
Really? Is that true?
Cius nih, benar. True according to.
Have you got any children? You don't have. Okay. Have you got some? Did they walk when they were born? You know, out they came and then they said, bye-bye, Mum, and they walked off? Didn't happen.
Pernah lihat nggak ada orang bayi begitu lahir jalan halo mama gitu, jalan sendiri.
I think, what was his name? Muhammad Ali, the boxer.
Muhammad Ali. Yes.
So I think maybe the baby Buddha was a little bit like Muhammad Ali. He took 7 steps and he said, I am the greatest.
Ya mungkin bayi Siddhartha mirip ya, karena dapat tinju hebat Muhammad Ali. Kan bayi Siddhartha jalan kemudian bilang aku yang paling agung.
Now that story is in the Tripitaka.
In.
Yes.
Oke, ceritanya ada di Tripitaka katanya. What, are you sure?
But is it meant to be taken literally true?
Or
Like Mara's army, is it meant to be taken literally true? Well, how many steps did he take again? 7. Noble 7-pole path. No, it can't be that.
7 factors of enlightenment.
Good. It could be the 7 factors of enlightenment. So, in the Dhamma, the Buddha often talks about 7 qualities that will lead you to enlightenment. Wow, maybe that's what it means. What about the lotus? Was it a coconut tree that came out? Or was it an orchid? It was a lotus. What does a lotus symbolize? Well, in all Indian literature, the lotus symbolizes purity coming out of dirt. I'm sure you've seen maybe lotuses here. It often seems to be the dirtier the water, the more beautiful the flower. So maybe it's a symbolic and a rather beautiful way of saying that this child will practice the 7 factors of enlightenment and rise out of the mud into a state of purity. I think that that's... So if we take it literally true, we may miss the point. We have to look carefully, think about it, and quite often we find a symbolic meaning rather than taking something literally.
Oke.
Sorry, that was a bit long.
Kan ya singkatnya seperti ini, kan selalu ada makna secara tertulis dan makna secara simbolik. Kenapa 7 langkah? Karena Anda bisa menemukan kalau di Tripitaka itu ada 7 faktor untuk mencapai penggugahan. Lalu kenapa pohon lagi, bunganya kenapa teratai, kenapa nggak pohon kelapa? Karena kita tahu ya kalau bunga teratai itu kan simbol, dia berada di tempat yang kotor tetapi dia tidak tercemar. Teratai itu di semua tradisi India bermakna pemurnian atau kesucian. Semakin kotor, kemudian dia akan semakin bersih. Jadi kalau kita melihat ini secara literal saja, tercatat saja, maka kita akan tidak bisa menemukan makna sesungguhnya yang sebenarnya ingin disampaikan. Jadi makna peristiwa ini adalah anak ini akan menjalankan, mempraktekkan 7 faktor untuk mencapai penggugahan, kemudian merealisasi kebudayaan itu sendiri.
So as I kept reading, as I proceeded, I noticed there were quite a lot of things that I've been told, that I've read, that I've never questioned, which I could never find in the Tipitaka. There were many other things that I have been told and I have read which are in there. But the important thing was that you must have heard of the Kalama Sutta. This is a discourse where the Buddha asked us to think for ourselves and not just follow what people tell us, but to look at something and think about it and say, is that correct? Everybody believes it, but is that correct? So the Buddha actually encouraged us to do that, but I find very often people don't do that, and perhaps we should do it a little bit more.
Jadi semakin saya mendalami, semakin saya baca, ada banyak hal yang dulu saya diajarkan, saya diberitahu itu ternyata tidak ada. Tapi ada juga banyak hal yang saya pelajari dan beritahu ternyata ada. Dan ada satu sutta yang menarik namanya Kalama Sutta. Di situ sebenarnya intinya Buddha mengundang kita untuk mempertanyakan apakah ini benar, apakah ini tepat. Nah, ini satu sikap yang perlu kita miliki. Jadi alih-alih kita cuma hanya menerima, kita bertanya, ini benar apa enggak? Gitu. Dan sikap ini sesungguhnya kalau kita perhatikan ya agak kurang ya di teman-teman yang Buddha.
So I found that despite studying Buddhism, reading books on Buddhism, for more than 40 years, when I did this study, I learned things that I didn't know before.
Dan dengan melakukan ini, artinya saya membaca, mempelajari Buddha Dharma selama 40 tahun, dengan mempertanyakan, mengajukan pertanyaan ini, saya belajar banyak yang dulu saya tidak tahu.
And as a result, I got really what is a more realistic picture of the Buddha. Now, the Buddha of tradition and of popular understanding, that's a very colorful character. He's got a girlfriend and he sees a dead man and a sick man and he fights with a devil under the Bodhi tree. That's really quite exciting. There's no doubt that some of these legends are really interesting. But looking at the real Buddha is interesting also, because it reminds me that he was a human being and he attained enlightenment. I am a human being, so I have some possibility of attaining enlightenment also.
Ya, jadi kalau kita lihat Buddha secara populer, yang sebagaimana digambarkan di dalam cerita-cerita dan legenda, Dia seorang laki-laki jatuh cinta, perang melawan Mara di bawah pohon Bodhi, itu kan sebuah bentuk karakterisasi ya. Sedangkan kalau kita lihat lebih dalam lagi ada sisi yang lain gitu. Sisi yang lebih manusiawi dan sisi yang ini kemudian membuat saya melihat bahwa beliau juga manusia yang mampu mencapai penggugahan. Saya juga manusia, berarti saya juga punya potensi untuk bisa merealisasi penggugahan itu.
I will finish by telling you two stories from the Tipitaka which I discovered, and they are my favorite stories about him.
Nah, saya akan akhiri dengan dua kisah dari Tripitaka, dan dua kisah ini adalah kisah favorit saya.
According to the Tipitaka, once the Buddha was giving a talk and he sneezed.
Ya, di kisah tersebut Buddha sedang ceramah dan tiba-tiba aciu, bersin.
What was it?
Aciu. This is Australian sneeze, this is Indonesian. Aciu.
Okay. When people sneeze in Indonesia, what do they say?
Aciu.
No.
They don't say anything. They say haciu.
No, but then what do people say
Okay.
to them?
Kalau orang bersin, kita jawabnya apa? Nothing. We don't respond.
Well, in Australia or in the Western world, if you sneeze, somebody says long life. Or may you
Panjang
live
umur.
long, something like that. Yeah?
In
Bless you.
gelis gede, Bante. The response is, or the Javanese, the tradition, they respond with gelis gede,
And
which means may you grow up fast.
Okay, right. So,
But if old man, mean you die first.
so apparently, he sneezed, and all the people shouted out, "Long life," which is what the Indians used to say.
Oh, ya, waktu Buddha bersin, orang-orang menjawab panjang umur gitu, sama seperti tradisi di India waktu itu.
And then the Buddha said, long life. When somebody sneezes and you say long life, do they live long because you said that? And they said, everybody said, no. He said, then don't say that again.
Jadi Buddha kemudian bertanya, kalau orang bersin, lalu Anda jawab panjang umur, emang terus orangnya jadi panjang umur? Lalu orang-orang menjawab, enggak, ya udah jangan lakukan itu lagi.
That's the first story I like.
Itu cerita pertama yang saya suka.
The second story I like is just a small thing. The Buddha is invited somewhere, and when he gets to the steps leading to the front door, he leant down and washed his feet. He washed the dust off his feet, and then he entered the building.
Jadi ada satu peristiwa, Buddha diundang, sebelum dia masuk ke dalam gedung itu, beliau membersihkan kakinya, baru dia jalan masuk.
It's a very normal thing for somebody to do, I suppose.
Itu biasa aja kan ya.
But in the legends of the Buddha, if you said the Buddha used to lean down and wash his feet, people would say, Amitavo. Buddhas don't wash their feet. First of all, their feet never get dirty because their skin is so smooth, the dust doesn't stick to it. And secondly, they would never do something as normal as that. What happens is the devas come down and lick their feet too. That's what the legend would say. That's what many people would believe. But it says in the Tipitaka that he washed his own feet.
When you say wash, is with water.
Yeah.
Okay. Jadi kalau menurut legenda, nggak ada cerita ini. Buddha nggak cuci kaki sendiri. Karena kaki Buddha itu nggak pernah kotor. Karena kan kalau kita lihat ada sangat-sangat apa sih orang bilang ada tanda-tanda ajaibnya ya, bahwa tuh debu tuh nggak bisa nempel gitu. Kalau nggak begitu, maksudnya kalau bukan karena debu nempel, nanti dewa yang bersihin, dijilatin gitu. Legenda gitu ya. Tetapi di dalam sutta ada peristiwa di mana Buddha mencuci kakinya sendiri.
So, what I have done is I've shared with you my experience of learning something new about Buddhism, in this case about the Buddha, which I did not know before. And as a result of that, I got a more realistic picture of what this wonderful man was like.
Jadi yang saya bagikan hari ini adalah proses di mana saya belajar. Ya, di mana saya belajar sehingga saya mengetahui sesuatu yang dulu saya tidak tahu tentang Buddha. Hasil dari saya belajar, saya ini semakin menyadari betapa realistisnya beliau ini, Buddha.
So it was something new to me. So if you get a copy of the book, please read it and you might discover something interesting and new about the Buddha too. That doesn't mean that you will laugh at and mock all the stories. No. But now you will get a more complete picture. You will know what the legends say and you will know what the Tripitaka says, and in that sense you will become a more knowledgeable Buddhist, and that's a good thing.
Nah, jadi ketika Anda membaca bukunya ada di belakang ya, jadi silakan didapatkan, dibeli maksudnya. Jadi Anda baca, lalu Anda akan mendapatkan gambaran yang lebih lengkap, Buddha secara legenda dan Buddha yang secara realistis. Dan dengan demikian kita akan memiliki gambaran yang lebih lengkap tentang beliau.
So that's all I've got to say for this evening. If there's anything you'd like to ask me on this subject, please do. I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have.
Jadi dengan belajar yang baru, kita kan jadi dapat pengetahuan baru. Nah, demikian yang saya sampaikan dan tentu kita jika ada pertanyaan terkait dengan subtopik ini, lah, silakan teman-teman untuk bertanya. Dan sebaiknya cepat ya, jadi kita bisa hemat waktu. 1, 2, 3, 4. We get 4 tickets.
Good evening, Bante.
Ya, selamat malam,
I want to
Bante.
ask something. Is in Tripitaka Pali, is that true? It's mentioned Buddha can do something magic action, mystical action, or paranormal action. Is that in the Tripitaka?
Yeah.
Can do that?
Like what?
I don't know. Maybe can flying, walk, floating gitu, or something magicful gitu.
Yeah.
Is that in the Tripitaka? Is there any written?
There
in that?
is. There
is?
Yes. Yeah.
Can do something spiritual, something
Well,
magic.
for example, it says that when somebody would come to him, he would look at them and he would know what they were thinking, what their intelligence was.
Oh, okay.
So that's a sort of a psychic power.
Yes.
I think that's possible.
Because the effect of meditation.
Because of what?
The effect of meditation.
Or maybe he's just very sensitive and he can see from the expression, their body language. Maybe that. Maybe not that he actually penetrates into their mind. But for example, you can often tell a lot about a person before they open their mouth by how they dress.
Gesture.
If they have a ring, a wedding ring on their finger, so straight away, if their fingernails are clean, if they've got earrings, maybe they've got a tattoo, maybe they've got shabby clothes or expensive clothes. So if you're very sensitive and observant, you can probably tell a lot about a person before they open their mouth. And then when they start asking you questions, you may even get a deeper understanding of what's in here. So whether it was a power he developed through meditation, or whether it was just being very sensitive and observing, I'm not sure.
Okay,
You
thank you.
translate. Jadi pertanyaannya, benar nggak kalau Buddha itu punya kemampuan gaib, kesaktian, mukjizat? Ya, Buddha beliau menjelaskan ya busa aja ya. Ada banyak peristiwa orang datang kemudian Buddha mampu melihat dari tatapan wajah, dari bagaimana orang tersebut. Nah sama seperti kita, kadang-kadang kita juga bisa tahu orang ini siapa dari sebelum dia buka mulut. Kita bisa lihat, kita bisa baca tanda-tandanya, misalnya contohnya pakai cincin apa enggak. Ya, atau misalnya apakah dia pakai pakaiannya layak apa tidak, kita bisa mengira. Nah, dan Bante menjawab bahwa mungkin saja bahwa dengan kemampuan meditasi dari Buddha, Buddha mampu untuk melihat atau punya gagasan tentang seseorang sebelum datang. Ya, tadi ibu ini silakan, ma'am.
Just let me
Okay.
finish.
Oh, you're not finished, Bante. Sorry.
There are also other things, like, for example, walking on water. So I don't think that we can take that seriously. I think that has been put in later to make the Buddha appear more amazing than he really was. So I think we can consider those sorts of things to be legends.
Dan terkait dengan berjalan di atas air, hal-hal seperti itu menurut saya mungkin tidak benar-benar terjadi. Itu bisa saja sebuah legenda untuk membuat Buddha itu menjadi lebih hebat.
Anything else?
Ya, we have the lady. Ya. Kalau bisa langsung bahasa Inggris, Cik. Ya.
In English?
Sorry?
In English?
Yeah, if that would be possible, that would be better.
Say it in Bahasa and then you translate.
Oh, oke. Bahasa kalau gitu.
Yeah, I think it's better in Bahasa. Okay. Good evening, Bante. Selamat malam semua. Terus terang penjelasan dari Bante membuat saya menjadi bingung.
Honestly, your explanation makes me confused.
Oh,
Terus terang saya juga sangat baru mempelajari Buddhism, mungkin baru 1 tahun lebih.
Okay. I'm new to Buddhism. Maybe I've been learning Buddhism for the past a year.
Sepengetahuan saya, Tripitaka itu dulu dihafal, dimemorize, dan diteruskan dari generasi ke generasi dihafalkan, tidak tertulis sampai suatu saat itu akhirnya ditulis.
From my understanding, the Tripitaka was firstly
Memorized.
transmitted orally
That's right.
until a certain period and it was written.
Jadi sekarang mengetahui bahwa cerita legenda Sang Buddha tidak tertulis seperti itu di Tripitaka, itu berarti ada kemungkinan bahwa legenda ini juga memang diceritakan, hanya diceritakan tapi tidak ditulis di Tripitaka.
And knowing this, most probably that the legend or the story it's orally transmitted instead of being written.
yes.
Pertanyaan saya sekarang, karena penulisan Tripitaka itu begitu lama dari zaman hidupnya Sang Buddha, berapa banyak kebenaran yang ada di situ?
Okay.
Apakah bisa dianggap semuanya benar atau bagaimana?
Yeah.
Ya.
So since it is written like many years after the Buddha passed away, so how can we be sure about the correctness? How many percent it is correct? It is true, Bante.
That's a very good question. Okay. In the first part of my book, I give the answer to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Di bagian pertama buku itu beliau memberikan jawaban untuk pertanyaan tersebut.
I've got an answer for everything.
Nah, saya punya jawaban untuk semua hal.
But very simply, we think that because something is written, it will be transmitted more accurately. But that is not true.
Ya, kadang kita berpikir karena dia ditulis maka dia ditransmisikan itu disambungkan ya secara lisan lebih tepat gitu. Maksudnya tulisan lebih tepat dibanding yang lisan. Tapi itu enggak sepenuhnya benar.
Nowadays we write everything on the computer and we have a spell check so we can check it.
Sekarang kalau Anda ketik di komputer, kita bisa periksa ejaannya kan.
But you remember before computers, you get a long letter from your friend and chances are there are at least one or two mistakes in it. If you are, say, like in Europe, before printing, how did people get a copy of the Bible? Somebody had to sit down and word by word write it. So one page can manage 50 pages, 200 pages. How many mistakes do you make? You make lots of them, okay? Then, so you've copied the whole Bible, and then maybe 50 years later, somebody wants a copy of the Bible. So they have to pay somebody to get your copy, and they copy it. And they make mistakes too. So after 600 or 700 years, there's a lot of mistakes in there. So people mistakenly think that if you write it by hand, it will be perfectly transmitted. Not true. With printing nowadays and photocopying, yes, very much so, but not in the past.
Ya, kita sering berpikir ya, kalau ditransmisikan, ditransfer gitu ya secara tulisan, maka pasti benar. Tapi itu kan karena sekarang kita punya mesin fotokopi, kita ada komputer, maka bisa kita anggap benar. Tetapi kalau kita lihat dulu, orang itu kan dari satu buku misalnya, tadi dicontohkan Alkitab itu kan di copy pakai tulisan tangan. Kalau cuma satu ya masih satu halaman oke lah, tapi kalau ratusan halaman kan pegel. Ya, jadi satu salinan ini kemudian ada orang yang mau punya lagi, disalin lagi. Jadi dari salinan pertama ini sudah ada kesalahan, salinan kedua ada kesalahan. Bayangkan bila ini dilanjutkan, disalin 600 atau 700 tahun kemudian. Jadi intinya adalah kalau orang menganggap yang disebut benar karena ditransmisikan secara tertulis, belum tentu yang tertulis itu bisa dianggap sepenuhnya tepat dan benar.
Second thing is, at the time of the Buddha, there was already a religion. Sometimes we call it Hinduism, but a better name is Brahmanism. And at least maybe 600 or 700 years before the Buddha, it's a long time ago, they had a collection of hymns which were worshipping the gods.
Yeah.
And they believed that if you chanted these hymns absolutely perfectly, then the gods had to give you what you asked for. In other words, they didn't decide. The fact that you chanted the hymns absolutely correctly compelled them to give. So they developed ways of chanting and remembering these hymns to an extraordinary degree of accuracy. Many of the Buddha's disciples were Brahmins. It was done by Brahmin priests. And when they became Buddhists, they had those skills already and they used them to transmit the Buddha's teachings.
Jadi di kehidupan Buddha, sebelum ada Buddha kan sudah ada keyakinan. Ya, kadang disebut Hindu, kadang disebut Brahmanisme. 600 sampai 700 tahun sebelumnya, ya. Jadi ada sebuah pola transmisi di mana mereka mentransmisikan semacam himne ya, chanting, pendarasan. Jadi diyakini kalau ini didaraskan dengan persis, tepat dan benar, maka apapun permintaan orang ini kemudian akan dipenuhi oleh para dewa. Dan ingat, ada banyak siswa Buddha itu juga yang para Brahmana. Jadi mereka melanjutkan tradisi mengulang ajaran Buddha secara lisan dengan menggunakan pola-pola yang sama seperti para zaman Brahmanya. Gitu. Karena kan mereka Brahmana, mereka sudah terbiasa mengulang mengulang secara lisan. Sehingga pengulangan secara lisan ini diyakini itu sangat akurat, sangat tepat, sangat benar.
I have answered your question briefly. In the book I give more details, so if you're interested you can read it.
Ya, jadi saya jawab secara singkat, bila Anda tertarik, Anda bisa baca bukunya di belakang segera ya, karena sisanya tinggal dikit ya.
Anything else before we finish?
Sorry, Bante.
Anything else?
Ada lagi?
before
I
we
think we
finish?
have another man here, this young gentleman, Juventus. Ya langsung. Kalau bisa pakai Inggris lebih baik, oke terserah lah, mau Inggris Indonesia terserah.
All right, so good evening, greetings. I think we can all, we are all feeling grateful for you to be so kind to spare your time,
Oke.
as you have a very tight schedule, as I can tell. I have two questions relating to Buddhism. So the first one is related to what
Just
Kata-
ask the question.
Karama
What's the
said,
question?
where it's, and I quote, "Throughout all the heavens and earth, I alone am the honored one." Is that included in the Tripitaka?
I couldn't understand that. Say it again, please.
So,
Pakai bahasa Indonesia coba, biar
Yes,
biar
say it
cepat.
in Bahasa and then.
Ya, pakai bahasa Indonesia aja, biar lebih cepat ya.
throughout all the heavens and earth, I alone am the honored one.
Right.
Is that in the Tripitaka?
Is that
I think it's the words that the little Prince Siddhartha
Right, right.
said. Is it in the Tripitaka?
Oh.
Apa 7 kata-kata yang dikatakan Pak
Well-
bayi Siddhartha itu ya?
Yeah.
I mean when the baby Siddhartha was
Yeah.
walking, he said these
Yeah,
7
okay.
words. Is it in the Tripitaka?
Yes, it is. And as I told you, I think the whole story is symbolic rather than to be taken literally.
Ada ya, dan itu hanya secara simbolik. Jadi jangan ditelan mentah-mentah secara kata-kata.
Just hold on a minute. When your baby was born, did it say, "Hello, Mama," or something like that? Didn't speak.
Ada yang anak
How long did it take before the little fellow spoke?
crying, only cry.
That's no good. When did he start speaking?
Kapan mulai ngomong? Ya, 1 year or more. After a year old, the baby start talking.
The Buddha spoke on the first day. Your child must be a little bit slow. Okay.
Ya, kalau Siddhartha langsung hari pertama. Kalau anak-anak Anda agak lemot ya.
I think most intelligent people could see that this is not literally true. What was your second question?
My
Orang-
second question would be, well, considering that Buddhism comes from India, if I'm correct, wouldn't it be more accurate to research the Indian Tripitaka instead of the Nepal Tripitaka?
Wouldn't it, because Buddhism comes from India, wouldn't it be more accurate to what?
Research from the Indian Tripitaka instead of Pali Tripitaka.
Well, it is an Indian book written in an ancient Indian language. It's not Sri Lankan or Thai or Indonesian. It is an Indian book. So it's like the Bible. It was written in Israel, but that doesn't mean that it's not relevant for today. And what the Quran is written in Arabic. Anybody here in Arab? Okay, so we can translate it from that language into a language that we understand. Same with the Tipitaka. It's an Indian document.
Jadi pada intinya itu adalah dokumen India ya. Karena kita bisa belajar dari bahasa seperti kalau ada di Alkitab kan pakai bahasa Hebrew ya, Israel. Kalau yang Quran kan pakai bahasa Arab ya. Nah, Dan sebenarnya yang kita tidak ketahui, bahasa Pali itu juga bagian dari salah satu dialeknya orang India. The Pali is the Magadhi dialect, am I right Bante?
What's that?
The Magadhi,
Probably. Yeah.
probably ya. Jadi mungkin salah satu bagian dari dialek orang India. Cukup? Kita kasih kesempatan ke yang lain ya.
All
Cynthia?
right. Thank you for answering my
Right,
questions.
thank you. That was an intelligent question, thank you.
We have one more. Bante.
One question before we finish.
We have here the MC, I think.
Okay, this question is from Rahula on YouTube Live.
Because we are online on YouTube, we have
Oh, I
questions
see.
from the
Okay.
YouTube channel.
Di bahasa Indonesia ya kok.
Ing.
Nama budaya, Bante izin bertanya, terkait Tisaratna, aku berlindung pada Buddha, Dhamma, dan Sangha, dan di parita lain mengatakan bahwa kita terlahir karena karma kita sendiri dan terlindung oleh karma kita sendiri. Manakah yang benar Bante? Berlindung pada Tiratana atau oleh karma kita sendiri?
Okay,
Berlindung
but
pada karma kita sendiri. Terima
Actually, the
kasih.
question is about out of topic, but let me out of topic. But it's about like we say that we take refuge we take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. But this also say that everyone is be responsible on their own karma. It seems that this teaching is contradictory. So, would you please explain, Bante?
Well, I don't know anywhere where it says a contradiction between
Taking refuge, we take refuge
And
in the
karma.
Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha,
Yeah.
and at the same time, people are responsible, live based on their own karma,
Right.
and they have to. So, according to the question, it seems like it's contradictory between the two.
Well, let me take this, that in law, you are responsible for the decisions that you make, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn something from your teacher. It doesn't mean that you can't learn something from your parents, but at the same time, you are still considered to be responsible for the decisions you make. I can't see a contradiction between those two.
Jadi saya tidak melihat ya kalau dua hal ini tuh sebenarnya saling bertentangan. Anda bisa belajar dari guru Anda, dari orang tua Anda juga bisa bertanggung jawab terhadap setiap keputusan yang Anda buat.
I can take advice from my friends. I can hopefully rely on them for help when I need it. That would be the Buddha. But that doesn't mean that I'm not responsible for what I do. Same thing, I would say.
Ya, saya bisa mengandalkan teman, mengandalkan guru, mengandalkan Buddha, dan tentu saya juga secara personal bertanggung jawab atas setiap perbuatan saya. Jadi saya tidak melihat ini saling bertentangan.
Okay, well, thank you for those questions. Thank you for your questions. And thank you for your attentiveness while I was speaking. I hope I've been able to share some things that would be useful for you. And I hope you will not be too confused and continue to learn more about your religion. I'm nearly 73, and it has been my best friend and helper and guide since I was 18. I highly recommend the Dhamma as a rewarding way to live, and I hope you would think like that also. So thank you.
Terima kasih atas kehadiran, perhatian, ya, dan konsentrasi teman-teman. Umur saya 73 tahun, dan Dhamma telah menjadi teman, sahabat, pembimbing saya sejak saya berumur 18. Dan saya menemukan bahwa ini adalah sebuah cara hidup yang sangat baik. Dan mari kita semua tumbuh dan belajar dan mendapatkan hal-hal yang baru.
I would like to finish by chanting the first two verses from the Dhammapada.
Kita akan akhiri, Bante akan mendaraskan dua syair pertama Dhammapada, kita dengarkan dengan husuk, kita ikuti dalam hati.
Namo Manasa che padutena basati vaha karoti va tatunang dukaman veti Chankang Vahavatu Padang Manupumbang Madam Manu Seta Manu Maya Manasa Che Pasanena Basati Vaha Karoti Va Tatunang Sukaman Veti Chaya Va Anapayani Tatunang Sukaman Veti Chaya Va Anapayani Tatunang Sukaman Veti Chaya Va